Well met and welcome back everyone to For Azeroth, the podcast all about Warcraft with me, Garrett Weinzierl, and her, Jocelyn Moffett. And we are finally back after not quite a 2-week amount of time off, but for everyone who's been tweeting at us, first off, thank you. We're so glad you care that we missed. And also, we had 2 Monday holidays across 2 countries 2 weeks in a row. So that's why our scheduling got a little bit wonky. You can blame...
As far as I know, though, all of our holidays pretty much line up for the rest of the summer, so...
Yes.
Like, anything that's a U.S. holiday is also a Canadian holiday, so at least, like, we'll miss a week, not this crazy staggered May business.
Indeed. I believe we're also, like, getting back from Nerdtacular conveniently before our Independence Day celebrations, so... Yes. I think we'll be okay that week. We'll see what happens when we get there. I'm not making any promises this far out. Nerdtacular is always a whirlwind of travel and
sickness,
insanity.
inevitable
yes.
sickness,
inevitable sickness. Yeah, if you're going to Nerdtacular, expect a lot of like the fist bumps, or Bill Duran taught me at Star Wars Celebration the elbow bump.
Oh, not even the fist.
Not even the fist. Yeah, no, Bill Duran will not give me his fist. As I stare confused at the camera. That didn't come out right. Whatever the case is, we are here for another episode of For Azeroth, talk all things Warcraft. Really, my Warcraft experience has been very quiet as of late. I'm pretty much just kind of sitting around waiting for the majority of the 7.2 content to actually be added to 7.2. Raid, I'm looking at you. Where are you? Where are you, Raid? Really should have just been like 7.175 is what this patch should have been.
Yeah, it's so we did actually get an email from Spiky Chris basically saying there's no story in 7.2. He's really disappointed. We didn't really want to rehash 7.2 all over again, but I've got to say, like, this has been absolutely terrible. Like this week, so in the weeks that we've missed, we've had like kill 100 demons, we've had find 10 treasures, and now this week is complete 3 order hall missions, and it's just like, really? Like, and they're not even unique, because I thought maybe there would be unique missions, because as we've seen in some of these order hall campaigns that we've been covering over the last 4 or 5 weeks of For Azeroth, some of the missions that you send your champions on actually have lore in and of themselves, and they have little descriptions and stuff. So I was like, maybe there's going to be 3 little story beats hidden in these. Nope, it's just anything flagged as happening on the Broken Shore. Just go do it, and then you're done. So the lack of story in 7.2, I think, has had a lot of people bowing out of WoW, myself included. I've been playing a lot of ESO because they have their new expansion Morrowind is coming out, and I had early access to it. So I was like, I'll go pop in and see how ESO is doing. Turns out amazing. But I haven't abandoned WoW completely, but I've definitely abandoned the new content other than my raid nights, which is kind of unfortunate. And I say abandon the new content, but as Garrett said, there's not really too much to abandon.
No, there's not. I mean, WoW is such a... It is a snowflake game. Everyone comes to WoW for different reasons. You and I primarily come to WoW for raiding and lore.
Yeah.
And right now, the game's in pretty sorry shape in those 2 particular aspects.
Absolutely.
If you've already completed the raid, which we have twice on 2 different difficulties, and you're not focused on alts, there's no lore.
That is the one thing, and even then, alts, it's not new lore, right? It's stuff you've already played through. In my case, I've played through it 3 times now, so alts is the thing that got a little bit easier with the invasions in 7.2, so there's big chunks of XP to be earned going through invasions. So there is that. Alts got a little bit easier to level in a sort of different way, but kind of once you've done the invasions once in each zone, then you've seen all the story there is to offer in invasions. But yeah, so I mean, alts did get a little bit easier to level in 7.2, but it's just, I guess what I can say about 7.2 is that 6.2, so in Warlords of Draenor, 6.2 is the one that wrecked PvP for me. And PvP is the thing that I usually do when I run out of other things to do. So I had already been PvPing for about a patch and a half by the time they wrecked Ashran in 6.2. So the fact that I'm only now getting to PvP, because that's the thing that I have been doing a lot of in Warcraft. I went back to my Hunter. I did a whole bunch of Ashran. I was doing the brawls. So I did the Deep Wind Dunk brawl, I think, which was kind of okay. So I'm back into PvP, so I'm in the World of Warcraft, but the fact that I'm just starting to PvP in 7.2 means, you know, they're ahead of the Warlords of Draenor curve.
What I'm gathering is for the 2 expansions that you have been ready to go from the onset, because I believe that is your history with World of Warcraft, that Draenor was the first time you were ever like at level ready to go with everyone else when it came out.
Yes.
What I'm gathering is that 0.2 patches are not your jam.
Exactly. But 7.2 is pushing me into PvP. So 7.2 is pushing me to the point of where like 6.0.5 had me in Draenor. So,
so it's still...
I mean, they put out a lot of solid content pre 7.2. So Legion has that kind of going for it. But yeah 7.2 has been disappointing. I hope that there is a lot of story in the raid, and unfortunately, raids don't tend to be very heavy on story. You get a little bit of RP with some bosses, which is kind of good, but they're not typically, like, they're not quest hubs, they're not anything. I think the next time we're going to get a big drop of story content is probably going to be 7.3 because of all the stuff of us going to Argus. So we have a little while to wait still, but we should at least have some raid content probably in the next 3 to 4 weeks. So.
Yep, absolutely. So I think at the end of the raid we'll get some type of stopgap to the next raid. I think we'll have a decent idea of what's going to happen with Sargeras, or at least where it's going with Sargeras, because we are going to fight his avatar, and I can't imagine we're going to get out of the tomb without a new end cinematic. I mean, at the end of Nighthold, you know, the big thing is, well, Gul'dan is dead again, and that is a big happening. But granted, we've had a long time now to kind of sit and figure out what that means for Warcraft on a larger scale. So I'm very much ready for the next big story beat, and I'm hoping Tomb of Sargeras will bring it, but I'm kind of thinking it'll be kind of a half measure of, you know, all right, time to go to Argus.
Yeah, we'll see. I think we're going to get a cool cinematic because, you know, the fact that we're probably going to be taking the Exodar to Argus is so freaking cool. Like, the Draenor are in the middle of fixing their ship, right? And then they're going home. So I feel like we're just going to hitch a ride, and all of Azeroth's champions are going to go home with the Draenei, which is pretty cool. So
I hope they do something with this in the next. I hope in the next expansion, if this is what's happening, if we're actually uprooting the Exodar and flying it off, I hope they update the Draenei starting area in the next expansion.
Well, they'll pretty much have to, right?
Yeah. Have you played WoW, Jocelyn? Are you aware of how long we just keep the world the way it is for convenience?
Well, that is true. And I mean, like, the Draenei starting zone could stay the same because it's kind of a moment in time. But, like, the Exodar itself, I feel like as a city, there should almost be 2 different versions of it. There should be the crashed versions for when you start as a Draenei, and then there should be, like, a rebuilt Draenei city of some kind. That, like, if you're over level 20, that's what you see.
Yeah, I think it would be cool if they redid the starting area to just be a new Draenei temple on Azeroth. Very much in the vein of, well, God, what was it called before it was the Black Temple? You know what I'm talking about.
Oh my God. I do know what you're talking about.
I don't actually know. I don't actually know off the top of my head what the heck it was called before Black Temple, because for as long as I've played WoW up until Draenor, which is my least favorite expansion, so I don't keep most of it in my memory banks, it was just Black Temple, because that's what it was in Burning Crusade.
Yeah, I'm totally blanking on it, but I know as soon as I hear it, and I'm sure chat room's going to tell us, but I'm just going to be like,
I'll use the name of a Draenei city. I do know the name of Shatrath. I hope it's just all Shatrathy, but on Azeroth, just make that the new Draenei starting experience. And
well, that's the thing. They could rewrite the Draenei starting experience as a kind of like return to Azeroth post Argus, like a whole, we've come back because we feel that this is our home, and it doesn't necessarily have to include everyone. Like, I'm sure Prophet Velen might choose to stay on Argus and restore his home planet and all that kind of stuff, and that would be fine with me. But I would like to see some sort of like resettlement of Draenei on Azeroth, who want to come back and help us with whatever the next threat is, which I think is going to be N'Zoth. So that could be like a rewriting of that starting zone would be awesome. I don't know if we're going to get it, but it would be cool if we did.
It would be pretty sweet. Temple of Karabor, by the way. I just looked
Karabor, yes.
Temple of Karabor. That'd be pretty dope. But then the Exodar comes back and it's just floating in the sky over that area all the time. How cool would that be?
That could be super cool too. And then also revamp it so we get flying in that zone and also near Silvermoon.
Yes, please and thank you. Oh, I want a Silvermoon rehash in the worst way. And Borderline. You know what? All the major cities. Orgrimmar got one. Why didn't any other major city get like a revamp?
Agreed.
Even Stormwind. We got like one little section that got blown up and then rebuilt, and that was it. Stormwind. I want a nicer, prettier, looking more like the Warcraft movie Stormwind. Please and thank you. Well,
yeah, Dalaran got a revamp too.
barely. It's a pretty. I was expecting to come into Legion Dalaran to be like sprawling and massive, and it's exactly the same size it was before, just with a couple slightly taller spires.
Well, and the streets are actually wider because there's a mage in our raid group who thinks it's super funny to put a whole bunch of portals on top of each other and or try to trick us with the wrong portals. So I took a portal to Dalaran Northrend by accident the other night, and it is actually significantly different. Like, you kind of forget. I got back into the city and I was like, holy hell, this is small. The walls are closing in on me. I need to get back to the Broken Isles.
So, that is not a mage in your raid, Jocelyn. That is every mage in every raid.
Possibly.
It's a fact. It is actually a fact. It's been proven and peer-reviewed. Whatever the case is, before we get into the meat of our show, which is lore, we will be covering the Paladin Order Hall campaign today. I do want to remind all of our listeners out there that you and I have a Kickstarter up right now to bring Embrace the Spoilers back for a new season covering the upcoming season of Game of Thrones. This is the podcast that this here podcast was born out of. We did a Embrace the Spoilers for the leveling experience of Legion that was not class specific, which is why we're doing Order Halls now, but about the 5 leveling zones. And that is where Faz came from. And we're looking to bring it back. We got a Kickstarter up. We're actually nearing our goal, and there's some really fun stretch goals on there, folks. You know you want to make Jocelyn watch Indiana Jones and have us in the process record commentary tracks of Jocelyn's first time sitting through the original Indiana Jones trilogy. And there's some other fun things in there as well. So if you would like to kick in a few bucks for the next season of Embrace the Spoilers, head on over to bit.ly/Embrace the Spoilers. I'm getting excited to bring this show back, Jocelyn.
Yeah, me too. I'm actually really hoping we hit at least our first stretch goal because we also on Embrace the Spoilers traditionally have done a lot of movies, and I'm really excited about specifically The Dark Tower, and I really want to record and Embrace the Spoilers about The Dark Tower. So
I want to talk about Pirates because I just saw it and I actually kind of enjoyed it.
Good, because I think Tom Merritt tweet saying that the name of the pirates or said, I just got back from Pirates of the Caribbean, dead men tell no new tales. And I was like, aw. Aw,
yeah, I mean, it's pretty by the numbers.
It's pretty much like the previous Pirates.
But it wasn't 4, which I just hated unabashedly. So that was good. Anyways, there's my TLDR on Pirates. But let's move on and talk about the Paladin Order Hall campaign, which I believe is a first for this show. It is the only Order Hall campaign that both of us have played through.
Exactly. And I've got to say, I mean, we haven't covered every single Order Hall campaign. We still have about 6 weeks left. And the Order Hall campaigns that I've played through and the Order Hall campaigns that we've talked about outside of the Rogue one, because I think it would have been a really cool, to see the Alliance Horde stuff firsthand. But I think I'm fairly safe to say that the Paladin Order Hall campaign is my favorite. I think it's the best one. It's very well done. Like, there are some very, very big, very emotional kind of moments. Everything's very kind of cinematic and well done. I don't know if it's the first one they did or the last one they did. I feel like maybe it was the first one, and then they went, whoa, we can't do all of this for every class. We'll never release Legion because it was huge. It was very, very big. So it's probably my favorite. I don't know how you feel, Garrett, but man, there are some...
I feel strongly that it's pretty fabulous.
Yeah. And I mean, and you played through the Death Knight campaign, and that's so close to your heart with all the Arthas stuff. So
I mean, for me, I would have to say it's tied between the two. I love them both very strongly. Although from learning about the Rogue campaign from doing the show, that one seems like it's right up there as well. But Paladins and Death Knights and the interplay between the two orders are, I mean, that's where I reside in my Warcraft fandom. And the Warcraft team did a very good job giving me really everything I could have ever wanted from both of these Order Hall campaigns, with the exception of a new shiny Order Hall for Death Knights. That's like the only the only thing I didn't get that I would have liked.
Yeah. So, I mean, basically, it pulls on the Paladin Order Hall campaign pulls on your heartstrings in so many different ways. And it starts off where the Broken Shore leaves off with basically we watched High Lord Tyrion Fordring be killed,
or so
quote unquote, air quotes.
Or so we thought.
Yeah, exactly. On the Broken Shore. Both the Alliance and the Horde watched this happen. And so it turns out that the Dreadnought Balnazzar has actually recovered Tyrion and was keeping him barely alive in an attempt to turn him into a puppet of the Legion. So Balnazzar is a Dreadlord himself, and I can only assume that he wasn't replaced by Balnazzar the Dreadlord because both factions saw Tyrion supposedly die. So if he just one day showed up being all fine, everyone would be like, something's wrong here. I feel like that would have been a big flag. It
certainly would have. It certainly would have. But you know what else is a flag? The convenient rate at which Tyrion expires.
Yes. So the basically recovery of Ashbringer is how you end up with the legendary weapon if you happen to be a Retribution Paladin. But it is worth mentioning basically that Tyrion was still alive, but then ends up dying, which I think when I was playing through this, I might have actually like texted you and been like, WTF, I hate these mechanics in storytelling. When it's like, oh, so-and-so is dead, and then you find out, oh, he's not actually dead, and then you go to try to save him, and he dies. Like, I hate that story beat. I don't know if you're the same, Garrett, but I don't like that kind of storytelling. It's like, if you're going to kill someone, just kill him and leave him that way.
When it's done in more focused storytelling in terms of television, movies, books, comics, etc., it annoys me to no end because you don't need to make concessions for millions of players playing the game in very unique ways. In WoW and MMOs, I give them a little more leeway because I think Tyrion is a character that is on a large enough scale that he is known and held in some high regard by just about everyone who plays the game, especially if you played through Wrath of the Lich King. So what I think they wanted is a public death for everyone leading into Legion, but I think they also wanted something special and more intimate for players, for Paladin players. So I think that's why we ended up with this concession, and I think it's okay at the end of the day. It did irk me a little bit, but like I said, this is a game where not everyone is going to experience the Paladin campaign.
Oh, it's very, very true. And I know, so I went through, and I'm glad that I did. I chose Ashbringer and Retribution as my first artifact to pursue because I knew I was going to heal with my Paladin, but I also knew leveling as damage was probably going to be easier on me. So I went for this first, and I'm glad that I did because it would have been really odd to go through as Holy and then at some point in the future go back to get Ashbringer, have Tyrion still be alive when I've already taken his place, and then like have everything that happened in the Order Hall campaign. Like anyone who went through as a tank or a healer through the Paladin Order Hall campaign, this must have been really disjointed.
Yeah, it almost like specifically for this one, I think it would have been interesting if they had kind of held your hand and had you go and collect the artifacts in a specific order for the sake of the story that they were telling. Because if they gave us the option to get all 3 artifacts anyway, so why not have that, just tie that into the beginning of the Legion experience and tell it in a specific order so that it actually improves your narrative.
Mm-hmm. Right, so everyone goes to get the Ashbringer if you're a Paladin, because it's a very, very important to the order itself. It's, you know, a weapon of pure light sort of thing and pure goodness. So it's the kind of thing that the Paladin order needs, regardless of if that's your spec or not. And then immediately after that recovery and immediately after returning his body to the Light's Hope Chapel, which is the next thing that you do, then give you the option, like, say, okay, now, would you prefer, instead of Ret, to go down the protection or the holy route for Paladins while you're leveling? I think that would, and maybe that's the way I did. Like I said, I chose Retribution from the start, so maybe that is the way that it played out for the other specs. I'm not 100% sure, but anyways, you bring Tyrion's body back to Light's Hope Chapel, and you set him to rest alongside the other heroes of the light. And this whole ceremony, this is kind of what I'm talking about with the Paladin campaign, how it's kind of bigger, more grand. It's this giant ceremony, which is actually crowning your character as the leader of the order. And as we've talked about before with the mages, with the rogues, like everybody, you have these moments where it's kind of like you and a set of core champions who turn out to be your kind of order hall champions you send on missions. They're named characters, you know who they are, but it's a group of usually like 5 to 10 characters that are around when you ascend to the top of the order. And it's good and it's fine and, you know, it's moving if you know who those characters are. But in the case of the Silver Hand, basically, you're bringing the whole entire order back. You are going to be the High Lord of the order. And all of the Paladins of the world have come to kind of pay their respects to Tyrion. So you're at the front of this chapel, and there's probably like 15 or so rows of pews, which later on when you're doing your artifact is a really big pain in the ass because you have to run all the way down this big long chapel to get to your altar to add traits to your artifact.
You really want the spec into those 2 charges of your magic horsey.
Exactly. It's so important. But
I don't care. It's such a great order hall. I don't give a crap.
Oh, it is. It's a fantastic order hall. And like I said, the ceremony is so grand because you're in front of all of the Paladins of Azeroth who are paying their respects. You're crowned in front of them. The speech that Maxwell Taurosas gives to kind of give you the leadership of the order and to reform the Silver Hand is just, it's very, very moving. I watched it again today while we were putting together the notes, and like I'm getting choked up as I'm watching this, and I'm like, I've already seen this. I played through this, like, but it was just so well done, and it felt perfect for Paladins. So basically, the Paladins from around the world gather, pay tribute to the fallen leader, and choose a new leader to unite them and reform the Silver Hand. So if you guys remember when we did our Arthas stories, then he disbanded the Silver Hand when they wouldn't purge Stratholme. So basically what happened was the Silver Hand split into 2 main groups, the Scarlet Crusade, who were corrupted from within from Balnazzar, who is the one who went after Tyrion, and the Argent Dawn. So after a failed attempt by Arthas to kill Tyrion, he brought together these 2 factions to form the Argent Crusade and take the fight to Icecrown. So now that Tyrion's gone, it's time to take back the Order's true name and avenge him, is essentially the kind of gist of this big ceremony.
Which is, it's huge. It's a big deal. I mean, if you're being technical, the Silver Hand more or less lived on through the Argent Dawn. The Argent Dawn kind of just kept doing what the Silver Hand was already doing, and were not corrupted by the influence of a Dreadlord. But it's still huge. And again, this is, of course, where I start freaking out, because there are Arthas connections. Oh, my God. Arthas and Uther. If there's connection to any of those 2 things, I lose my mind. And that's exactly what's happening here. And you're absolutely right. The way just the way it kicks off with the funeral of Tyrion, it's like the Paladin campaign like starts like with the end of Lord of the Rings. It's like this giant meeting of everyone important ever. And it's Warcraft's version of that, and they did such a good job with such a bizarre medium of MMOs. I think it's a very strange, a very challenging medium to tell your story through, and I think they've done a great job with the Paladin Order Hall. But moving on past that, we get into really the part of the Order Hall campaign that just about every damn Order Hall deals with. Well, everyone does deal with, which is the discovery of Light's Heart. But it plays out a little differently for the Paladins because they're basically the ones to discover it. So Maxwell Tyrosis. Okay, that sounds like a disease. Oh, I've been diagnosed with tyrosis. I have to take my pill every day. Whatever the case is. So Maxwell.
Wicked case. Sorry.
Wicked case of being a badass paladin. So Maxwell, who was the former leader of the Argent Dawn and is the now champion of the Silver Hand, he saw a brilliant object just flying through the sky and felt its immense power before it disappeared off the coast of Suramar. So the new High Lord, us the player, takes the news to Khadgar, who informs the rest of the Order before he and the High Lord leave for Suramar to investigate this mysterious object. So
this is basically where every other Order in the game gets the quest that Khadgar needs to speak to them. And so it's basically the Paladin Order who brings it to the attention of Khadgar, and then Khadgar who spreads the information to the rest of the Orders.
And this is where, correct me if I'm wrong, because it's been so long now, but this is where everyone goes and flies with Khadgar in his crow form. He makes some dad jokes and points out like a Vrykul encampment off the coast of Suramar as you're flying by?
Yes.
Okay. Cool. My memory is sound. Maybe we'll get an email saying we're both wrong. But he also takes his raven form and escorts you down to Azuna when you choose that zone that might be what I'm
to quest
about.
in.
That might be
no, but he does the same thing going down to Suramar as well.
Okay. Very cool. So, alongside Khadgar, the High Lord recovers the object from an underwater cavern, and they take it back to Dalaran. When Khadgar goes and touches this object in the Chamber of the Guardian, it activates, and it reveals a message from none other than Turalyon, speaking on behalf of the Army of the Light. If you didn't think this was already as Paladin as possible, we learn of the existence of an army of literal light beings. And Turalyon is apparently leading them. Now, we did do a lore show about Light's Heart on our very first episode of For Azeroth, and we talked a lot about Turalyon and Illyria on our second. So we're not going to deep dive here. If you're just tuning in or haven't listened to the first couple episodes of Faz, go back and listen to those, where we go into great detail about Turalyon and Illyria. Also, I'm surprised that in the background, Jocelyn just hasn't screamed, "Illyria, oh my god!"
Yeah, so basically when I started the expansion playing on my hunter, and I went down the marksmanship quest line because I knew that Illyria's bow was the bow that you were going to get. And what I thought was going to happen is that we were finally going to find Illyria and reunite her with her sisters. So she's the sister of Sylvanas, obviously, and Varisa. So basically, I thought we were going to get to see her, and it turns out, spoiler alert, we don't actually find Illyria at this point in time. What we do find is that she's been a prisoner of the Legion, and it kind of hints to the fact that time in the Nether flows a little bit differently than it does on Azeroth. So what seems like a few years for us could actually have been centuries for Turalyon and Illyria. So the 1,000 Years' War that Turalyon mentions in his kind of message to Khadgar, basically it's very, very possible that they could have been involved with this war from the very beginning, because it's all, time is relative to, where you are in the universe and how close you are or how far away you are from the Twisting Nether. So Illyria, she is an elf. So it makes perfect sense that she could live for 1,000 years, because we have some elves that have lived for 10,000 years. Turalyon is a little bit different because he's actually a human. So we can only assume that he has become some sort of light-infused being that's granting him some sort of immortality or something, because humans traditionally don't live for thousands of years. So there's some sort of light influence going on with Turalyon, but the point is there's a war that's been waging for 1,000 years between the Army of the Light and the Burning Legion. They've suffered a defeat, and this is their last plea to Azeroth. So it's a really cool story. I'm glad that these two characters are back, and like Garrett mentioned, go back to the very first episodes of Faz if you haven't listened to them, because that's where we go in depth about Light's Heart, Illidan, and Turalyon and Illyria.
Yep. So moving past Illyria and Turalyon, we have to take this object to the Prophet, who is, of course, Prophet Velen, who reveals that the object is actually the sentient core of a Naru, specifically the prime Naru, Zera. So the High Lord and the Prophet take the core to the Naru Oros in the heart of the Exodar, but it has been corrupted and destroyed by the Legion. A big battle then kind of ensues within the Exodar. After that battle, Velen declares that the Draenei are going home and calls for the repair of the Exodar, which is just like awesome. Like if you've been playing since Burning Crusade like I have, and you've been around since the Draenei conveniently crash landed adjacent to the Night Elves, this is a big deal.
It is kind of funny though, because it's like if repairing the Exodar and going home was always an option, like what have you been doing? Although I guess maybe they just got really caught up in Azeroth and wanted to help. I don't know, but
I don't know why now is the opportune time. I'm sure it was inconvenient to try and repair it during the events.
Well, I think at least because this part is part of the Light's heart quest line. I was gonna say Light's Hope, and I'm like, nope, that's our order hall name. Light's Heart. There's too much light in this order hall, but it's part of that campaign. And so basically, Velen finds out that his son was actually taken, corrupted by the Legion. He thought his son was dead. He wasn't. He's this agent of pure hatred, and he's committed all kinds of atrocities. Velen confronts him in the Exodar and realizes it's his son too late. His son is killed, and I think at this point it's the tipping point for Velen. He's kind of like, all right, that's it.
Gloves are
I gotta
off.
go kick some ass on Argus. I've had it.
Yep.
It's basically time to kill the Legion. And this I think we talked about when probably on our first episode of Faz, basically just saying like, what does this mean? This is before BlizzCon. This is before we knew about Argus being the kind of raid content for 7.3. So at this point, we're kind of like, is Prophet Velen just abandoning Azeroth? Like, what's going on? Are they just leaving us? Like, are Draenei no longer going to be playable in the game? Like, what the heck is going on?
Well, that'll never happen.
It seems... Yeah, but it seems like in fact he is planning on taking the fight to the Legion on Argus, which, yay, Prophet Velen, time to get off your ass and trying to just see the future. Like, do something. Thank you.
I think we might all be loading up for a road trip in the Exodar. That might be happening, possibly. But anyways, the High Lord returns with Light's Heart to the Sanctum of Light, and the Paladins gather for a war council to discuss what this all means for Azeroth. The vessel senses a young paladin nearby, Arator, as a matter of fact, and begins to show him a message from his father, Turalyon, warning him of the arrival of Balnazzar, who has been sent to destroy all that Turalyon holds dear. So, Balnazzar is back.
Yeah, which we kind of already know, again, from the start of the Paladin Order Hall campaign, so it's kind of unfortunate that Turalyon's warning kind of arrived too late. But it's kind of a nice story beat for Arator, because he was looking for traces of his parents. He is the son of Turalyon and Illyria. And so he was looking for traces of them back in Burning Crusade when we first went through the Dark Portal, and was basically unable to find anything. He kind of had stories, and there was a few different quest lines that he went on in Hellfire Peninsula, but he was never actually able to find his parents. So the fact that he kind of got word from his father acknowledges that he exists and, kind of says, sorry, watch out, like, this is coming for you, I apologize. It's kind of a nice, like, wrap up for him in his quest to find his father.
Yeah, I anything that involves Arator makes me happy, because it's a character I care quite a bit about.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot more of him as the story progresses, because I expect that we're going to meet up with these characters on Argus. So I'm sure that there's going to be some big reunion, and I hope that more than just the Paladin Order gets to see it. But the way that Legion is kind of progressing, things have been very much hidden behind your class. So I wouldn't be surprised if the kind of reuniting of Arator with his father is something that only Paladins get to experience, but one way or another, I'm going to get to see it, so I'm excited.
Yes, very.
Sorry if that makes me a little selfish.
Very much. I will say I'm concerned, projecting here, but bear with me. I'm a little concerned with Arator kind of taking a center stage position, that it doesn't bode well for one or possibly both of his parents. Like, if Arator is stepping up, does that mean by the time we actually reconnect with Turalyon and Illyria, that their days might be numbered, and we might be setting their son up to champion, to continue championing on their cause?
I think that is possible. We have seen quite a lot of Turalyon so far through the Light's Heart questline. And I'm wondering, like, you could be onto something there with, I think that they will probably, since we haven't seen anything of Illyria, if they are going to get rid of one or the other, I would say it's probably going to be Turalyon. I don't think that they would hint at the fact that Illyria is still alive and that we're going to see her just to find her body. Like, I think that we'll probably find her grieving the loss of Turalyon or something like that, because he does mention that they are kind of experiencing a defeat at the hands of the Legion, and their last call, their last plea is, you know, being sent through Light's Heart. So it's maybe he's in the middle of a battle when he records that message and he actually ends up falling. We don't really know. But 7.3 hopefully will answer all of those questions. But you might be onto something, Garrett.
Jocelyn, what if Illyria falls and Sylvanas resurrects her, and we get a forsaken and we get a forsaken council of war chiefs in the vein of how the Blood Elves lead Silvermoon?
I would be totally okay with that. Garrett's doing a little fanboy clap right now for you audio listeners. It's amazing.
Garrett does fan fiction.
Yep. So after the attack on the Exodar, Vindicator Boros, who has been kind of helping us along at this point and leading the Silverhand Knights at the front against the demons, he is now blinded by a need for revenge. It just was the last straw for him. So he leads the Silverhand Knights, who are under his command, into a chase of Balnazzar without actually knowing the true strength of his enemy. Balnazzar's lieutenant Jarvox actually captures Boros and kills the entire detachment of knights who were under his command. The High Lord arrives just in time to defeat Jarvox and save Boros. But he realizes, Vindicator Boros realizes that the revenge is not the way of the light, and he's very greatly upset by all the lives that were lost in payment for his mistake, which is one of those things where it's always nice for you to realize that after the fact, but you literally killed a whole detachment of Silverhand Knights. Like, there needs to be a little bit more weight, I think, given to this, but he decides to basically follow the path of righteousness and bow to the High Lord's orders from now on, because he kind of ran off by himself, and obviously that didn't end well. So the High Lord and Vindicator Boros return to Light's Hope Chapel with the Codex of Command that they discovered in Faranar while they were chasing down Balnazzar. They know it's important to him, but they're unable to actually read the code inside because it's written in a demonic language. So the High Lord teams up with Priestess Delis Moonfang to decode the Codex of Command. Since it, like I mentioned, it was written in the demonic language Eridun, I guess? Eridun?
Eridun, yeah, Eridun. Such a cool word to say. Yeah, and yeah, so and Delis is aware of another basically piece of literature that was written by some, I guess, dead person now that could speak both Eridun and Draenei.
Which kind of makes sense, because I feel like the demonic language would be very closely tied to Draenei, since that was one of the first planets that was kind of like bent to the will of Sargeras to create create the demons, the Dreadlords, all that kind of stuff from the Eridar.
Well, specifically, yeah, the Eridar they're corrupted Draenei. Yes,
they are. That's where Prophet Velen and his people fled before Sargeras was able to corrupt Argus completely. So they are the last, like, uncorrupted members of that society. So it makes sense that their languages would be very, very similar. So Paladins get super culty at this point and start collecting vast quantities of demonic blood from the warfront so that Legion sigils can be read, which is really funny because it's kind of a dark thing for Paladins to do. They're so light, but now they're like, we need all the blood. We need it all. So Delis is able to decipher the Codex, which holds records of the Legion's forces at Fellblaze Ingress, and actually shows the Paladins that they're planning to open a portal directly to the demon world. So at this point in time, we get the super awesome, like, buddy cop moment of the Paladins and priests teaming up as they're both looking for Balnazzar. So Apony, not Aponia, Apony Brightmane, Arator, and Dallas leave for Fellblaze as the High Lord goes into Blackrock Hold to deal with the demonic threat within. So if any of you guys have actually done this dungeon, this is actually really cool because some of these, or I guess all of the members of Blackrock Hold, all of these High Elves, they fought against the Legion in the War of the Ancients, and they have been corrupted by the kind of Legion presence and the Fel and Gul'dan. They've been corrupted, so they see us as the demons. So they are kind of like haunted, twisted souls that are now fighting against the actual citizens of Azeroth because they see them as demons as opposed to what they really are. And you get to the end of the dungeon and then actually confront a Dreadlord who's been kind of leading this charge in the form of an advisor to Ravencrest. So it's a really cool story in Blackrock Hold in the dungeon itself. So if you, for some reason, haven't played through it, I highly recommend it. It's one of my favorites from a lore perspective. There's also a super cool map room, and I know I'm going way down like kind of a rabbit hole here, but after the first Amalgam of Souls is boss, after you kill him, you go into this room. It's a library, and there's like bookshelves all over the place, and there's a giant map in the middle that's showing all of like the Legion forces and the High Elven forces. And if you look at the map really closely, it's actually Kalimdor before the Sundering. So it's this gigantic landmass, and it's showing where everyone is. And I like the first time I went into the dungeon, I ran through the room and I was like, oh, guys, we have to stop. Look at this map. This is amazing. Like, lore geek.
Oh, that's amazing. I did not know that was in there.
Like, WTF.
Yeah. So the Paladin campaign gives like a little extra kind of story to Blackrock Hold, but if you haven't run it, what are you doing? It is, I think, just straight up the best damn dungeon in Legion. I love everything about it, from the lore to just the design.
Yeah, except for the part where there's boulders running down the stairs or coming down the stairs at you, because I can never do that.
That's fine.
I'm always the one that gets knocked back
How are
down.
Your favorite game is Zelda, and you're bad at dodging boulders coming down a stairs?
It's because they're like, it's the way that you look, and then the spiraling staircase, and I don't know. I can't do it, Garrett. I just can't do it. Don't judge me.
All right, one more reason to get that second charge of your magic pony.
Yeah, there you go. But that just makes me get hit by boulders faster, Garrett. It's just like, instead of walking into them, I'm charging into them with a horse.
Fine. Just get good, Jocelyn.
Yeah, I know. So upon emerging from Blackrock Hold, the High Lord learns that Apony and Delis have gone dark after leaving for Fellblaze. So through Apony's journal, the High Lord learns that the two of them and their forces were captured during the attack on the portal by Balnazzar, and they were taken through the portal. So the High Lord travels to Niskara, which is a demonic world, and frees the captured forces. After freeing Apony, the High Lord and the High Lord alongside her uncover a Legion plot to invade Netherlight Temple, which is the Priest Order Hall, and make an attempt on Velen's life. So basically, Prophet Velen is really, because of his relationship with Kil'jaeden, he is very much they used to be besties, and they used to run the Draenei civilization together. So based on that relationship, the Legion has been searching for Velen for years and years and years and years, basically for 13,000 years, in fact, since Argus was taken over by the Burning Legion. So he's always been their focus. He's always been Kil'jaeden's main focus. It's the whole reason why the orcs invaded Azeroth in the first place, because Kil'jaeden was trying to weaken Velen and, attack the Draenei and everything else. And so all of the things that have happened basically in the World of Warcraft have been because of Kil'jaeden's kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Vendetta against Prophet Velen. So he has finally located him in the Priest Order Hall, and so they are going to make an attempt on his life. Before leaving Niskara, the High Lord and Apony free a mysterious stranger that appears to be a light-infused Dreadlord, who tells us that we fight for the same side. And while it's not explicitly stated, it appears that some Nathrezim have found their way to the light and are fighting alongside Turalyon, which, when I first discovered this guy, I'm so glad, because in the end, he ends up being one of your followers. He has such a cool design. Oh, my God.
Yes, 100. I mean, the Dreadlords already look awesome, and then you make them gold and infuse with like white glowing skin, and it's very cool, and is a very big. There's some big implications lore-wise here that the Nathrezim can redeem themselves.
Yeah, either be redeemed or be kind of purified. So we are not told how this works. We don't know what's going on. Basically, it's just there are a whole lot of things in the universe that exist that are kind of at the borders of light and dark and the void and everything else. So since demons are kind of infested with the twisting nether, maybe perhaps they're able to kind of skirt the line between light and void, and somehow, I mean, it says something potentially even about the priest order hall, which also kind of skirts that line between light and void.
Well, it's existing within the nether.
Exactly, it does. It exists within the nether, and there is kind of one half of it that is kind of dedicated to the void, and that's your shadow priest side, and then there's the other side, which is your holy side, which is dedicated to the light, and it very much skirts this boundary. So I'm wondering, like, because Balnazzar he corrupted a paladin order years ago, like we've killed him and he's come back, and we've killed him and he's come back many times now. So I'm wondering if, because of the location of the temple, if maybe that has some implications for the demons in the giant battle that happens at the temple that Garrett's going to tell us about now.
Yeah, absolutely. So this all comes ahead with the siege of Netherlight Temple, and what happens is despite uncertainty within the kind of war council, which now comprised of both paladins and priests, despite their uncertainty at the words of a mysterious golden dreadlord showing up seemingly out of nowhere, the High Lord decides to stand with the Conclave and defend Netherlight Temple, hoping, basically, you're going in on the hope that this mysterious dreadlord will stay true to his word and lend his aid. Also, a short aside here, Delos Moonfang wishes to become a paladin during these events, and you can actually choose whether or not to let her. I don't know why you wouldn't, but
yeah, I think the second choice is something along the lines of "let me think it over" or something.
Right.
And she actually does again become one of your Order Hall followers. So I would assume that you're kind of just always given those two choices to either do it and progress the story right away, or think it over, but you always just have the, like, either yes or think it over. Like, I don't think you ever say flat out no to her.
Right.
So
no, you don't.
The way to progress the story basically is making her a paladin.
Right. Which another big implication from a gameplay standpoint, we've never had Night Elf Paladins. Are we getting Night Elf Paladins? Because I'm just going to swap back to Alliance. See ya. I'll see you later, guys. That sounds awesome. I'm such a non-committal jerk when it comes to WoW. I love both sides so much. There's so many things about both sides, mostly because both sides have elves, is really what it boils down to. But whatever the case is, I thought that was interesting. And remind me, I have another possible implication about playable races at the end of this.
All right.
Anyways, moving on. So we go to Netherlight Temple, and Balnazzar and his Legion forces attack the temple directly. Balnazzar is there on the ground floor fighting himself. And at what seems to be the darkest hour, where Balnazzar looks to be standing triumphant, the mysterious Golden Dreadlord appears in a golden Draenei vessel. Looks very much like the Exodar, or the what was it? What was the prison in Nether Storm? It was a raid where you fought Kael'thas. Doesn't matter.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. And that's actually where the Exodar comes from.
Right.
Tempest Keep?
Tempest Keep, yeah. Those type of crystalline Draenei vessels. That's what this Dreadlord shows up in, but it's golden and glowing. And it's an in-game cinematic, and it's kind of awkward how slow this thing pans into view, and it kind of kills the mood. But whatever the case is, he shows up and reveals himself to be Lothraxion, the commander of the Grand Army of the Light. And he shows up and fights along your side. So together, the High Lord and Lothraxion defeat Balnazzar and save Netherlight Temple. And then we find afterwards, when we reconvene at Light's Hope Chapel, Lothraxion shows up, becomes our follower, and reveals that he's been fighting alongside Turalyon and Illyria.
Yeah, which is really, really cool. And the other thing that I really enjoyed about this battle at Netherlight Temple is when he shows up, he actually shows up with a whole lot of members of the Army of Light. And so they are all wearing kind of the same sort of battle gear, which does look like this kind of cool mashup between like the Paladin and Priest sets, like their Order Hall sets, not their tier sets. And it just, the kind of mashup and different coloring looks really, really neat. but it also makes it very difficult to see like who's underneath all of that armor. So some of them look very similar to races on Azeroth, and others look very different. So it will be interesting to see when we actually go to Argus and when we actually get to meet members of the Grand Army of the Light. I would really like to see if they have a whole bunch of new characters and new models and things that we're going to see. And I know that Lothraxion is not necessarily a new model. He's basically a recolor of a Dreadlord. But still, just the idea that they're kind of like playing with those things, I'm interested to see what other potential races have joined the Army of the Light, because the Army of the Light in general is made up of surviving members of races whose planets have been conquered by the Burning Legion. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of races we get out of this interaction.
Yes, absolutely. And the big one for me is, are we going to get playable Nathrezim in the next expansion? Because sign me up right now. I would be very down for that. I don't care about the implications of how difficult it may or may not be to make current armor work on a model like that.
That's kind of the thing, because I think with the next expansion, what we might be getting is playable Naga, which would be cool. But like you said, it does that. I think we've actually talked about it before on the show. Playable Naga would be difficult to make it work with the current.
I don't think we'll ever see. But I don't think we'll ever see playable Naga just because they do not have legs.
Yeah.
And you're just gonna have tube pants. Is that what you're?
Well, or you just don't do any. Like you have a tail. You pick your tail color when you start your race, and then you don't ever have pants or boots that actually show on your character.
So does it just stop after the belt? Because if it's just like a hard line where your armor starts and stuff, that's gonna look real doofy.
I know, but that's the only thing I could think of.
Oh, I don't think there's a way to make armored Naga look cool in a game with items that you swap.
Unless it just, would you rather that it just is like a tube of armor?
No, my argument is that there's not a correct answer, and that's why we'll never get them as a playable race.
Right.
Unless we get some bizarre bipedal humanoid Naga, which could honestly look kind of cool. I mean, we have the Jinyu, which are bipedal fish people. So why not? Granted, they're just using the Night Elf model, by the way.
Yeah.
Watch them run around. It's the exact same animation, same skeletal structure, but
I don't know. I think that as cool as that would be, they're so big that I think that they probably wouldn't. I mean, Tauren are big enough. I think if we had playable Nathrezim, that would just be, those models are just so huge. With the wings and everything else, I think probably Demon Hunters are the closest that we're ever going to get with their metamorphosis ability.
But
I don't know. It would be really, really cool though if we could.
At the same time, WoW plays really fast and loose with scale. I'm very annoyed by the fact that all of our leaders are giant for some reason. Like, just make them the scale they should be. I don't. So
you mean that basically you'd be playing like itty bitty Dreadlord?
Yeah, pretty much. A human-sized Dreadlord. I get the wings will still be kind of large, but I'm sure they could figure something out. Did you ever watch Gargoyles growing up, Jocelyn?
I'm vaguely remembering this, yes.
Okay, well, Goliath would always wrap his wings around himself like a cloak. They should do that, and then just special attacks will have you, like, whip your wings out.
That could be cool.
It'd be really sweet, and I'm sure extremely difficult to make work in the game, and I'm not giving them enough credit, but whatever the case is.
But get on it, Blizzard, come on.
The idea of Nathrezim not being all evil, just anytime, like, a cool evil race crosses over to one of the good guys in Warcraft, I want them as a playable race. I still want ethereals in the worst way.
Oh, God, I know. But so my final thought on this, and I kind of alluded to it before we actually talked about the outcome of the battle. So in Netherlight Temple, like I said, where it is this it exists in the Nether, and it is this kind of meeting point for light and the void. I'm wondering if that's enough to make all of the demons that we defeated there, actually die. Because up until now, we've killed things on Azeroth, and then they've just been kind of reincarnated in the Twisting Nether, and then they've come back to fight us again. So I'm wondering if the battle at Netherlight Temple is actually the first instance of us, like, killing a demon for good.
Yeah, I mean, it's not explicitly stated, is it?
It's not, but I'm just wondering if it's close enough to the Twisting Nether, because it exists in the Nether, so I would assume that this counts as killing them in the Nether.
Well, in that case, Balnazzar is an idiot. Why would you take that risk? Why would you show up yourself? But, whatever.
I guess Prophet Velen was enough of a draw for them to go after. But
yeah. Well, whatever the case is, this is why anytime we bring up 7.2, I'm just like, can we just move it along? I want to know what happens next. I really do.
I agree.
We came in 7.2 the continuation of your Class Order Hall campaign, but not really. Is what we got. Like, we got so little in terms of additional story. Whatever the case is, they hit it out of the park with the Paladin campaign, and the quality of these stories that they are telling are the very reason that I am impatient with the continuation of the story. So, it's a weird compliment. It's a very weird compliment. Anyways, let's wrap this episode up with an email or two. You may send your emails to fazpodcast, that is fazpodcast at gmail.com. Shalmoon writes in this week and showered us with kind words. I'm not going to make you all sit through them here, but thank you very much for the compliment, Shalmoon. But Shalmoon also had a question. If we could cosplay any character from WoW at BlizzCon, who would it be? Shalmoon apparently desperately wants to be a Fel Murloc. But I also just want to be a Murloc in real life anyway. Why would you want to be a smelly fish person? All right, no judgment. Thanks again, guys. And keep on fazzing. Oh, jeez. I mean, if I could get male human proportions that don't make sense, I would love to cosplay Arthas. But unfortunately, he's built like Johnny Bravo.
You just need to do like that guy that did Reinhardt. Did you see the Reinhardt at BlizzCon last year?
I did.
Do whatever he did, but just in Arthas armor instead of Reinhardt.
Super easy. It never moves naturally. When you it's always impressive to see those big builds, but it never moves quite right because dudes don't look like that. Natural. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. And it's not. I feel like this never comes up conversation. We're always talking about, and rightfully so. All the women in fantasy. Why are they wearing bikinis and women don't look like that? The dudes don't either. Space Marines from StarCraft, Tychus, and that cinematic guys don't look like that.
Very true.
It's like a Dick Tracy villain. What's going on there? But
well, I think for me, obviously, Sylvanas, right? Like, I love elves anyway, and Sylvanas is pretty freaking cool. Although, I think my runner-up, just because I think she's going to be really kind of crazy big in the next expansion, she's already made a resurgence in this one, would be Queen Ajara. I think she has a really cool kind of costume and style, and if I could think of some way to kind of incorporate some of her like Naga-ish stuff with some of her Night Elven stuff from 10,000 years ago, because that's the Ashara that we see in game really, is her Night Elven self, the way we saw her 10,000 years ago in the War of the Ancients. We haven't actually really, there's like this shadowy figure of a Naga that we kind of see when you're actually questing in Azuna, but we haven't actually seen her like full final form. So if I could think of some way to maybe a drenched, all wet, long stringy hair with seaweed in it, and maybe some kind of different skin coloring, leaning more green away from the purpley blue, not necessarily in transformation, but this kind of drowned Ashara thing, I think would be really cool to cosplay.
That sounds pretty dope. Well.
So someone with way more talent than me, go make that costume.
I would be down for all of those things if it didn't mean showing way more skin than I'd be comfortable with. I really, actually in college, started planning out how to make Hunter Tier 4, and I would still like to do that one day. That's one of my favorite tier sets in the game. What specifically about it makes it super cool for you? The glowing green.
I don't know the tiers.
So it's the brown set that you got from doing Karazhan, and I believe Gruul's Lair. And
is it the big blinking eye shoulders?
No, that was the final tier in Burning Crusade. Or sorry, second to final. I always forget about Sunwell. That was from Black Temple, Gronstalker. No, this was the first tier in Burning Crusade. It's brown. And the shoulders look like those anglerfish from underwater, but they're glowing green through the teeth and the eyes.
Oh, cool!
It's a Demon Stalker set.
I don't know if I've ever actually seen that.
It was
set of armor.
It's special to me because it was the first tier set I ever got in World of Warcraft. So that's one I would always like to come back and make. And I would have to make what's the bow from Karazhan? It's like the Sun Fury bow or something. It doesn't match at all. But back in that day, I was running around brown and green glowing with a day glow orange and yellow bow that matched in no way, shape, or form.
Orange and yellow. I'm trying to remember because there's a couple of bows that I've gone back to collect for Transmog, and I can't quite remember that one.
It's the Sun Fury bow of the Phoenix. It drops off of was that Prince Malchezaar at the end of.
Oh, okay. I was thinking of
Karazhan.
the one that's I think it's like the Silver Moon bow or something. It's kind of like the one that all the guards carry and stuff that drops off of Kael'thas.
It's pretty much I think the Silver Moon bow is more or less the same. It just doesn't have the center like shield that kind of guards your hand. It's like a hand guard built into a bow. But it's that was what I would do just because of the sentimental value of all of it. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Our next email comes to us from Anaries, who says, "Hi there. During the confrontation and dust-up with Sylvanas and Gen Greymane at Halls of Valor, is it possible that he got a scratch or bite into her that could give her the Worgen curse? Do we even know if Gen is okay? He left with an arrow in the right side of his chest, which may not be fatal, but do we know? And if he dies, would Sylvanas raise him to damn him to an undead life? Could undead Worgen be a possibility? If they both became undead Worgens, would they still be enemies? Could it be that the final tie, or the tie that finally binds, the alliance to the Horde?" Love the show. So there is a quest in Silverpine Forest, I believe, where Sylvanas, essentially, this is post-Kata, Sylvanas kind of confronts some of the Worgen forces. And through that quest line, we actually learn that the Worgen curse gives them a natural resistance to many other curses and diseases, including the curse of the undead. So Worgen cannot be resurrected as undead. So even if Greymane were to die, he could not be resurrected by Sylvanas. The other thing that we learn through the course of those quest lines is that basically the only way to become a Worgen is to either be bitten by one or to drink the blood of one. As far as I can tell, Sylvanas did neither. But I imagine that the curse of the undead and the curse of the Worgen are kind of exclusive. You can't be both. We can't have undead Worgen.
Cannot be twice cursed, apparently.
Exactly. You're either undead or you are a Worgen. You can't be both. So unfortunately, your tie that binds the alliance to the Horde isn't necessarily going to be this, but I still think it's a cool theory because an undead Worgen would be super freaking neat.
It would be extremely cool. Oh, and also, just can we get other race models in Forsaken, please?
Yeah, and I knew that was going to be the thing that you came up with out of all of this, is just let me be undead, anything but human. And I agree. I would love to be basically a Sylvanas clone. Like, undead elf, please, yes.
I just want to be a sexy undead elf. That's all I want in this world of Warcraft.
Undead trolls, those would be super cool too. Thank you, so cool. Thank you, Soldier Hawk in the chat room.
Sign me up. Undead pandas. I'm not a panda guy, but sure. Everything's cooler when it's partially decayed, okay?
Exactly.
That's really what it boils down to. Let's get Vrykul in here so I can also get undead Vrykul. How are they not a playable race yet? We'd need to add Barbarian from Diablo as a class, but I'd roll I guess an Arms Warrior Vrykul like tomorrow if they added Vrykul to the game.
I kind of think it would be super cool if we just had the ability to kind of choose, and I've said this before, like choose your type of thing. So like orcs choosing like to be an uncorrupted orc and have, brown skin, or all the different kinds of dwarves that there are. Like it would be really, really like a dark iron, if dark iron could be playable. So not actually changing your base race, but just kind of changing the skin that goes on top of it. So then or not race or class or whatever. So then if you choose to be like a warrior, you could choose to then be like, say, a human warrior, but then now you can be Vicruel as your skin over top of that. I think would be super cool.
That'd be really awesome, except Vicruel would have to be their own thing, because they're again, way larger than standard humans, and the models are not the same at all. But like a dwarf to dark iron dwarf, that would work, because they're the same models in game, they just have different. And the same thing with your green tinted orcs and your original uncorrupted brown orcs. Also, let's get some fel orcs in there, man. I want to be a blood red orc. That sounds awesome.
You can have fel tauren too, because we've basically got fel like all the races in this expansion.
Yeah. Although maybe it doesn't make sense to be like a fel blood orc, but uncorrupted orcs, I'm surprised that isn't a thing. Especially after Draenor. It should have been a thing with Draenor. Like maybe it's not a bullet point on the back, like new skin tint for orcs, but it feels like the type of thing that should have come in with that particular expansion.
Yeah. But anyways, Daenerys, thank you so much for sending in your theory. It was a cool thing to kind of talk about. We haven't talked too much about Worgen in general, so look for that in our upcoming lore series. I'm sure we're going to get into it a little bit more, because the whole story of Gildeas is actually really interesting. So we will dive into, there's so much lore in the World of Warcraft. I promise you guys, we were going to get to all of your fan theories and comments and requests for lore eventually, but it's a very, very, very big world. So just give us time.
Yep, absolutely. So fazpodcast@gmail.com, once again, is the place to send your emails. We'd love hearing from our listeners, so please keep them sending in, especially those lore nerds of you with your theories and questions about what we'd like to cosplay as. Apparently, Jocelyn's answer is anything with a surprising lack of clothing. That's
why I don't cosplay right now, is I don't have the balls to walk around in a bikini.
I'm gonna do just like the battle harness, like that really awkward, like it's just the leather straps.
It's the strap with the loop around the nipple.
Yeah, like the D ring in the center or whatever. I guess it's just a circular ring, but that's what, one of these years, maybe, I don't know, maybe someone will get enough bourbon into me at the Hilton that the next day I'll show up just running around in a battle harness, and I'll never secure another Blizzard interview at BlizzCon for the rest of my life.
But it would be totally worth it.
Why is it when girls wear a lack of clothes it's sexy, and when guys do it it's funny? Why? Why can't I show up in a battle harness and everyone be like, oh man, I want to get my picture with that guy?
Oh, I'm sure there's a lot of people that would want a picture with you, Garrett.
Not for the same reasons. Not for the same reasons.
Not the same at all.
Not going to happen. Not going to happen. Civic in the chat room says challenge accepted. No, go away.
Civ shows up with a bottle of bourbon and a harness.
And a harness? Oh, that's just, oh, my raid leader took this to a dark place. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, subscribe to For Azeroth on iTunes, on youtube.com/amovetv. Catch us live usually Mondays at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, which we should be returning to that time this coming Monday on twitch.tv/amovetv. You can also catch us live virtually on any device thanks to alphageekmedia.com. And don't forget about our Kickstarter for the next season of Embrace the Spoilers and all of the stretch goals within over at bit.ly/embrace the spoilers. We are going to be spoiling Game of Thrones Season 7. First stretch goal is a smattering of summer movies that we're going to spoil. And the second stretch goal is going to be make Jocelyn watch Indiana Jones, the original trilogy. We'll record a commentary track and an episode spoiling the original trilogy of Indiana Jones. Check that out at bit.ly/embrace the spoilers. Jocelyn, where can folks find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Twitch at Joss Plays, and you can also catch me every Wednesday night. So tonight on twitch.tv/amovetv for my general gaming podcast, The Gamers Inn.
I can be found on Twitter at Garrett Art, 2 R's and 2 T's in Garrett Art. I hope you know how to spell. Amove.tv is the place to find every other podcast that I do. We just posted a new episode of Let's Talk About Star Wars with Tom Merritt and Jenny Josephson. I recommend going and checking that out because it pretty much only happens once a month, so it's special when it happens. Other than that, I've got a graphic design portfolio at nomoonart.com. If you need a graphic designer, there is a contact form right there on the website. Let me know what you need designed. That's going to do it for this episode of For Azeroth. Until next time, good luck, have fun, and for the love of God, let me be a sexy undead night elf, or blood elf, or high elf, or I don't care, an elf.